Do you know what? Asked Percy. What? Grunted Gordon. Do you know what? Silly, said Gordon. Of course I don't know what, if you don't tell me what is. Sir Topham Hatt says that the work in the yard is too heavy for me. He's getting a bigger engine to help me. Rubbish, said James. Any engine could do it. If you worked more and chattered less, this yard would be a sweeter, a better, and a happier place. Percy went off to fetch some coaches. That stupid old signal, he thought. He was remembering the time he'd misunderstood a signal and gone backwards instead of forwards. No one listens to me now. They think I'm a silly little engine and order me about. I'll show them. I'll show them. But he didn't know how. By the end of the afternoon, he felt tired and unhappy. He brought some coaches to the station. Hello, Percy, said Sir Topham Hatt. You look tired. Yes, sir, I am, sir. I don't know if I'm standing on my dome or on my wheels. You look the right way up to me, laughed Sir Topham Hatt. Cheer up. The new engine is bigger than you and can probably do the work alone. Would you like to help build my new harbor? Thomas and Toby will help too. Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. The new engine arrived. What's your name? Asked Sir Topham Hatt. Montague, sir, but I'm usually called Duck. They say I waddle. I don't really, sir, but I like Duck better than Montague. Good. Duck it shall be. Here, Percy, show Duck around. The two engines went off together. Soon they were very busy. James, Gordon, and Henry watched Duck quietly doing his work. He seems a simple sort of engine. We'll have some fun and order him about. Quack, 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 wheesh! Smoke billowed everywhere. Percy was cross, but Duck took no notice. They'll get tired of it soon. Do they tell you to do things, Percy? Yes, they do, answered Percy. Right, said Duck. We'll soon stop that nonsense. He whispered something. We'll do it later. Sir Topham Hatt was looking forward to hot buttered toast for tea at home. Suddenly, he heard an extraordinary noise. Wheeze! Bother, he said, and hurried to the yard. Duck and Percy calmly sat on the switches outside the shed, refusing to let the engines in. Gordon, James, and Henry were furious. Stop that noise! Bellowed Sir Topham Hatt. They won't let us in, hissed Gordon. Duck, explain this behavior. Beg pardon, sir, but I'm a great Western engine. We do our work without fuss. But begging your pardon, sir, Percy and I would be glad if you would inform these engines that we only take orders from you. Quiet, said Sir Topham Hatt. Percy and Duck, I am pleased with your work today, but not with your behavior tonight. You have caused a disturbance. Gordon, Henry, and James sniggered. As for you, thundered Sir Topham Hatt, you've been worse. You made the disturbance. Duck is quite right. This is my railway, and I give the orders. After Percy went away, Duck was left to manage alone. He did so easily. The coaches behaved well. The passengers even stopped grumbling. Duck is very proud of being Great Western. He talks endlessly about it. But he works hard, too, and makes everything go like clockwork. It was a splendid day. The cars and coaches behaved well. The passengers even stopped grumbling. But the engines didn't like having to bustle about. There are two ways of doing things, Duck told them. The Great Western Way or the wrong way. I'm Great Western and... Don't we know it, they groaned. The engines were glad when a visitor came. He purred smoothly towards them. Sir Topham Hatt introduced him. Here is Diesel. I have agreed to give him a trial. He needs to learn. Please teach him, Duck. Good morning, purred Diesel in an oily voice. Pleased to meet you, Duck. Is that James and Henry and Gordon, too? I am delighted to meet such famous engines. The silly engines were flattered. He has very good manners, they murmured. We're pleased to have him in our yard. Duck had his doubts. Come on, he said. Diesel purred after him. Your worthy Sir Topham Hatt to you, ordered Duck. Diesel looked hurt. Your worthy Sir Topham Hatt thinks I need to learn. He is mistaken. We Diesels don't need to learn. We know everything. We come to a yard and improve it. We are revolutionary. Oh, said Duck. If you're Rev-a-thingamy, perhaps you would collect my cars while I fetch Gordon's coaches. Diesel, delighted to show off, purred away. When Duck returned, Diesel was trying to take some cars from a siding. They were old and empty. They'd not been touched for a long time. Diesel found them hard to move. Pull! Push! Backwards, forwards! Oh! Oh! The cars groaned. We can't! We won't! Duck watched with interest. Diesel lost patience. He roared and gave a great heave. The cars jerked forward. Oh! They screamed. We can't! We won't! Some of their brakes snapped and the gear jammed in the sleepers. Chuckled Duck. Diesel recovered and tried to push the cars back, but they wouldn't move. Duck ran quietly round to collect the other cars. Thank you for arranging these, Diesel. I must go now. Don't you want this lot? No, thank you. Diesel gulped. And I've taken all this trouble? Why didn't you tell me? You never asked me. Besides, said Duck, you were having such fun being whatever it was you said. Goodbye. Diesel had to help the workmen clear the mess. He hated it. All the cars were laughing and singing at him. Cars are waiting in the yard, tackling them with Diesel. Show the world what I can do, gaily boasts the Diesel. In and out he creeps about, like a big black weasel. When he pulls the wrong cars out, pop goes the Diesel. Growled Diesel, and scuttled away to sulk in the shed. Duck was horrified. Shut up, he ordered, and bumped them hard. I'm sorry our cars were rude to you, Diesel. Diesel, the new engine, was sulking. The freight cars would not stop singing rudely at him. Duck was horrified. Shut up, he ordered, and bumped them hard. I'm sorry our cars were rude to you, Diesel. Diesel was still furious. It's all your fault. You made them laugh at me. Nonsense, said Henry. Duck would never do that. We engines have our differences, but we never talk about them to the cars. That would be disgraceful, said Gordon.
Disgusting,
put in James. Despicable, finished Henry. Diesel hated Duck. He wanted him to be sent away, so he made a plan. He was going to tell lies about Duck. Next day, he spoke to the cars. I see you like jokes. You made a good joke about me yesterday. I laughed and laughed. Duck told me one about Gordon. I'll whisper it. Don't tell Gordon I told you. And he sniggered away. Ha, 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 guffawed the cars. Gordon will be cross with Duck when he knows. Let's tell him and get back at Duck for bumping us. They laughed rudely at the engines as they went by. Soon Gordon, Henry, and James found out why. Disgraceful, said Gordon.
disgusting.
Put in James. Despicable, finished Henry. We cannot allow it. They consulted together. Yes, they said. He did it to us, we'll do it to him, and see how he likes it. Duck was tired out. The cars had been cheeky and troublesome. He wanted a rest in the shed. The 3 engines barred his way. Keep out. Stop fooling, said Duck. I'm tired. So are we, hissed the engines. We are tired of you. We like Diesel. We don't like you. You tell tales about us to the cars. I don't. You do. I don't. You do. Sir Topham Hatt came to stop the noise. Duck called me a galloping sausage, spluttered Gordon.
Rusty red scrap iron,
hissed James. I'm old Square Wheels, fumed Henry. Well, Duck? Duck considered. I only wish, sir, he said gravely, that I'd thought of those names myself, if the dome fits. He made cars laugh at us, accused the engines. Sir Topham Hatt recovered. He'd been trying not to laugh himself. Did you, Duck? Certainly not, sir. No steam engine would be as mean as that. Diesel lurked up. Now, Diesel, you heard what Duck said. I can't understand it, sir. To think that Duck, of all engines, I'm dreadfully grieved, sir, but no, nothing. I see, said Sir Topham Hatt. Diesel squirmed and hoped he didn't. I'm sorry, Duck, but you must go to Edward's station for a while. I know he will be glad to see you. As you wish, sir. Duck trundled sadly away, while Diesel smirked with triumph. Oh, glory! Look at that! James was just pulling out on their line from the station ahead. Any minute, there could be a crash. Duck, the Great Western engine, puffed sadly to Edward's station. It's not fair, he complained. Diesel has been telling lies about me and made Sir Topham Hatt and all the engines think I'm horrid. Edward smiled. I know you aren't, and so does Sir Topham Hatt. You wait and see. Why don't you help me with these cars? Duck felt happier with Edward and set to work at once. The cars were silly, heavy, and noisy. The two engines had to work hard, pushing and pulling all afternoon. At last, they reached the top of the hill. "Goodbye," whistled Duck, and rolled gently over the crossing to the other line. Duck loved coasting down the hill, running easily with the wind whistling past. Suddenly, it was a conductor's warning whistle. "Hurrah! Hurrah! Hurrah!" laughed the cars. "We've broken away! We've broken away! Chase him! Bump him! Throw him off the rails!" they yelled. "Hurry, Duck, hurry," said the driver. They raced through Edward Station, but the cars were catching up. "As fast as we can, then they'll catch us gradually." The driver was gaining control. "Another clear mile and we'll do it." "Oh, glory! Look at that!" James was just pulling out on their line from the station ahead. Any minute, there could be a crash. "It's up to you now, Duck," cried the driver. Duck put every ounce of weight and steam against the cars. "It's too late!" Duck groaned. He veered into a siding where a barber had set up shop. He was shaving a customer. The silly cars had knocked their conductor off his van and left him far behind after he had whistled the warning. But the cars didn't care. They were feeling very pleased with themselves. "Beg pardon, sir," gasped Duck. "Excuse my intrusion."
No, I won't,
said the barber.
"You've frightened my customers. I'll teach you."
And he lathered Duck's face all over. Poor Duck. Thomas was helping to pull the cars away when Sir Topham had arrived.
I do not like engines popping through my walls.
Fumed the barber.
I appreciate your feelings,
Said Sir Topham Hatt.
but you must know that this engine and his crew have prevented a serious accident. It was a very close shave.
"Oh," said the barber.
Oh, excuse me.
He filled a basin of water to wash Duck's face.
I'm sorry. I didn't know you were being a brave engine.
"That's all right, sir. I didn't know that either,"
You were very brave indeed.
said Sir Topham Hatt.
I'm proud of you.
Sir Topham Hatt watched the rescue operation. Then he had more news for Duck.
And when you are properly washed and mended, you are coming home.
"Home, sir? Do you mean the yard?"
Of course.
"But, sir, they don't like me. They like Diesel."
Not now. I never believed Diesel, so I sent him packing. The engines are sorry and want you back.
A few days later, when he came home, there was a really rousing welcome for Duck, the great Western engine. Next day, he was shunting freight cars full of china clay. He banged the cars hard into the buffers, but the buffers weren't secure. Duck and Percy enjoy their work at the harbor, pulling and pushing cars full of cargo to and from the quay. One morning, the engines were exhausted. The harbor was busier than ever. Sir Topham Hatt promised that another engine would be found to help them. "Huh, it's about time," said Percy. "I ache so much I can hardly get my wheels to move," agreed Duck. They waited for the engine to arrive. It came as a shock when he did. "Good morning," squirmed Diesel in his oily voice. The two engines had not worked with Diesel for a long time. "What are you doing here?" gasped Duck. "Your worthy Sir Topham Hatt sent me. I hope you are pleased to see me again. I am to shunt some dreadfully tiresome cars." Shunt where? Said Percy suspiciously. Where? Why, from here to there, purred Diesel. And then again from there to here. Easy, isn't it? With that, Diesel, as if to make himself quite clear, bumped some cars hard. Oh! Screamed the cars. Grrr! Growled Diesel. Percy and Duck were horrified. They did not trust Diesel at all. They refused to work and would not leave their shed. Sir Topham Hatt was enjoying his tea and iced bun when the telephone rang. So there's trouble in the harbor yard? I'll be there right away. Diesel was working loudly and alone. Cargo lay on the quay. Ships and passengers were delayed. Everyone was complaining about Sir Topham Hatt's railway. Percy and Duck were sulking in their shed. What's all this? Demanded Sir Topham Hatt. We're on strike, sir, said Percy nervously. Yes, added Duck. Beg pardon, sir, but we won't work with Diesel, sir. You said you sent him packing, sir. I have to give Diesel a second chance, replied Sir Topham Hatt. I'm trying to help you by bringing Diesel here. Now you must help me. He was the only engine available. Percy and Duck went sadly back to work. Next morning, things were no better. Diesel's driver had not put his brakes on properly, and Diesel started to move. He went bump straight into Percy. Wake up there, Percy, scowled Diesel. You have work to do. He didn't even say he was sorry to Percy. Later, Diesel bumped the car so hard that the loads went everywhere. What will Sir Topham Hatt say? Gasped Percy. He won't like it, said Duck. So who's going to tell him, I wonder? Two goody-goody tattletales like you, I suppose? Percy and Duck did not want to be tattletales, so they said nothing. Diesel, thinking he could get away with his bad behavior, was ruder than ever. Next day, he was shunting freight cars full of china clay. He banged the cars hard into the buffers, but the buffers weren't secure. The silly cars were sunk. Sir Topham Hatt heard the news. The cars were hoisted safely from the sea, but the clay was lost. Sir Topham Hatt spoke severely to Diesel. The harbor master has told me everything. Things worked much better here before you arrived. I shall not be inviting you back. Now, Duck and Percy, I hope you won't mind having to handle the work by yourselves again. Oh, no, sir. Yes, please, sir, replied the engines. Whistling cheerfully, they puffed back to work, while Diesel sulked slowly away. Percy and Duck like working at the harbor by the sea. On a clear summer's night, there's no better place to be. The big ships bring passengers. Cargo ships carry machinery and other things. Duck and Percy puff backwards and forwards with the crates of cargo as they are loaded and unloaded by the quayside. One morning, Duck and Percy noticed that the horizon was packed with sails flapping against the blue sky. I wish I could sail to faraway lands, sighed Duck. Engines can't go sailing, snorted Percy, because engines can't float. Duck still had his dreams. Suddenly, they were rudely interrupted. Wakey, wakey, hovered Harold. I'm looking at the boats, replied Duck. That's the regatta. Lots of boats, lots of races, great fun. I hover around in case I'm needed. Do you go to the horizon? Asked Duck. Yes, and beyond. I didn't know there was a beyond, whispered Percy. Do you go to other places at sea? Continued Duck. Certainly. I can land on ships, you know. Anywhere, anytime. Goodbye. Duck sighed. He went on talking about the regatta all day. Percy lost patience. Well, Duck, I'd rather have my wheels on solid ground. Our rails can take us to all the places we could ever wish to see. That's an emergency, called Duck's driver. I'll check with the harbor master. He returned with bad news. A man taking part in the regatta has hurt his hand. We're to take him to the hospital at the next station. Harold's bringing him now. Come on. Good to see you again, Duck, whirred Harold as he landed carefully on the platform. The man was gently helped to safety. My job is to stay at sea in case of other emergencies. Otherwise, I would take this gentleman to hospital myself. Must fly. Goodbye. Duck set off on his journey. Soon he was steaming well, and his wheels were thundering along the track. When they reached the station, the man thanked everyone, and Bertie got ready to take him to the hospital. You look splendid flying along the line, Duck, glowed Bertie. No wonder they call you Great Western. Thank you, Bertie. Percy's right, he thought to himself. Engines are happiest when their wheels are firmly on the rails. That night, Percy and Duck stayed a little longer at the quay. The air was warm and the sea calm. There's a shooting star, said Duck. Don't be daft, laughed Percy. It's Harold. Look, he's hovering overhead. Something fluttered down towards Duck. His driver caught it. It's a flag from the regatta. Harold's giving it to you as a present, Duck. That was kind of Harold, whispered Duck. He may have whirly arms instead of wheels, but he seems to understand just what an engine needs. Duck still wonders about the lands beyond the horizon, but I think he knows that sometimes the best travels are those we can only dream about. Don't you? It was a special holiday on the island of Sodor. Bertie the bus was working harder than ever before. All the engines were busy too. Duck was waiting for his next journey. Near him stood a red bus, but he didn't look friendly like Bertie. The bus growled as he gazed at the happy passengers. Stupid nonsense, he grumbled. I wouldn't have brought them if I'd known. I'd have had a breakdown or something. I'm glad you didn't, smiled Duck. You'd have spoiled their fun. Bah! Enjoyment is all you engines live for. One day railways will be ripped up. Duck felt shocked at such an idea. We have a friend called Bertie, and he's a bus, but he likes the railway. Sometimes he teases us about it, but he'd never want to see it ripped up. Huh, growled the bus. I know Bertie. He's too small in size to be of any use. Duck took no notice. That bus is silly, he thought, as he steamed away. At the junction, Duck told Oliver all about him. I call him Bulgy, chuckled Oliver, and then he puffed happily away. But that afternoon, when the two engines met again, Oliver was no longer laughing. "Bulgy's friend has come," he said. "He's rude, too. He's taking Bulgy's passengers home and leaving Bulgy free to steal ours." "But he can't," objected Duck. "Bulgy says he can get them to the big station before us." "Rubbish," replied Duck. "It's much farther by road." "Yeah," continued Oliver, "but Bulgy says he knows a shortcut." That evening, the engines were preparing for the homeward rush. "Where are the passengers?" they wondered. "Look," shrilled Oliver. "Look at Bulgy. He's a mean scarlet deceiver." Bulgy was wearing a large sign saying railway bus. "Yeah, boo snubs," he jeered as he roared away. "Come on," puffed Duck to his coaches. "Let's see what he's up to." Duck wanted to get back at Bulgy, but he wasn't sure how. Then, in the distance, Duck saw a man waving a red flag. That meant danger. The line here crosses a narrow road, and there was Bulgy, wedged firmly under the bridge. "So this was his shortcut," chuckled Duck. "He tricked us," shouted Bulgy's passengers. "He said he was a railway bus, but he wouldn't accept our return tickets. He wanted us to think railways are no good." Duck's crew examined the bridge. "It's risky, but we must help the passengers." "Passengers are urgent," agreed Duck. Duck slowly and carefully set off across the bridge. Bulgy wailed as he felt the bridge quiver. "Oh, oh!" "Stop!" he shouted. "It might fall on me." "That would serve you right for telling lies," said Duck. But the bridge didn't collapse. Duck made good time, and all the passengers caught their trains. The bridge is now mended, but not, unfortunately, Bulgy and his ways. He never learned sense. He's a hen house now, and his lies can do no harm. The hens never listen to them anyway.
And off they went. On starry nights when the moon is full and the air still, you can hear the sounds of faraway ships and distant laughter. They echo over the hills and through the valley, down calm canals and sleepy inlets. Every engine knows that these are the sounds that say the harbor is hard at work at the big station by the sea. One night, a special load of fish was ordered. Sir Topham Hatt decided that extra vans must be added to the train that the men call the Flying Kipper. The only vans available were old ones. They had not been used for a long time. Henry waited impatiently by the quayside as Duck shunted them into position. Thomas puffed by with the mail train. "Hello, Duck. Going fishing? I'd take care if I were you." "Why?" huffed Duck. "Well, for one thing," puffed Thomas, remembering his own experience, "if fish get into an engine's boiler, they always cause trouble. And for another, fish can be awfully smelly. And I know what I'm talking about. Good night." Henry grunted dreadfully. "You'll just have to put up with it, Henry," said his driver. "At least the extra load will mean you can have another engine help us up Gordon's Hill." Meanwhile, Duck was waiting at Edward's station so that he could help the heavy train by pushing from behind. Henry made good progress. When they reached Edward's station, his driver stopped the train beyond the platform. Then Henry gave a special signal. Beep, 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 beep. I need help, please. Beep, beep, replied Duck. I won't be long. Duck buffered gently up to Henry's train. He was not coupled on. Henry would then be able to run on without stopping when they reached the top of the hill. Ready, whistled Duck, and off they went. Soon they reached Gordon's Hill. Push hard, puffed Henry. We're doing it, replied Duck. Henry was pulling his train harder than he realized. Duck felt the weight on his buffers slacken. Then Duck noticed something else. There's no sign of a tail lamp, he puffed. He whistled, but there was no reply. Meanwhile, Henry had noticed something too. My train's getting heavier, he thought to himself. I'm slowing down. Then there was trouble. No one was hurt, but a strong smell of fish hung in the air. Next day, workmen found the broken tail lamp at the bottom of the hill. Sir Topham Hatt spoke kindly to Duck.
The accident wasn't your fault. We should have checked that this tail lamp was fixed on properly. We'll soon have you in working order again.
Thank you, sir, said Duck sadly. Thomas told me to be careful about fish. They got me in a right pickle, didn't they?
That may be, but splendid-looking engines such as myself should always pull passengers.
Duck in the water. It was a cold, wet winter's day. Duck was at Knapford Station when James arrived. Of all the jobs he is given, James likes pulling coaches best of all.
It's a shame you've been stuck with a goods train, Duck, but I suppose somebody has to pull trucks.
Oh, I thought you sometimes pulled trucks too.
That may be, but splendid-looking engines such as myself should always pull passengers. After all, the passengers prefer it.
But things don't always turn out the way James would like them to.
Oh, who can appreciate my bright red paintwork in this weather?
There had been a lot of rain on the island of Sodor, and the rivers were high. Harold was flying over Duck's branch line when he saw that the track had been flooded. So he went to warn the Fat Controller, but it was too late.
Oh.
James was just settling down to have a rest when he saw the Fat Controller coming across the yard.
Uh-oh. I hope he's not looking to give me another job.
Ah, James, you have no job at the moment. Duck is stuck in the floodwater and needs to be lifted out.
But I'm waiting for my next passenger train, sir.
Well, you'd better get going then. The quicker you rescue Duck, the sooner you'll be back.
But, sir, if Duck fell in the water, whose fault is that?
It's nobody's fault, James. It was an accident. But I need an engine to take Rocky and help him out.
Huh. I thought ducks liked being in the water.
James?
James didn't think fetching Rocky was a very suitable job for a splendid engine such as himself. But sometimes, every engine has to do a job that they don't like.
That ought to do it.
Come on, Rocky. We have to rescue Duck.
Oh, okay, James. But you'll have to wait while I have my crane arm secured.
Nonsense. Duck is stuck in the water, and the sooner we get him out, the sooner I can get back to doing something more suitable.
And James pulled away before Rocky's crane arm had been secured.
We need to stop! I'm swinging about back here!
Get a hold of yourself, Rocky. You'd think you'd never responded to an emergency before.
You're going to cause an accident!
Nonsense. Duck's had the accident. We're just going to rescue him.
Whoa! James! Slow down! We need to... Whoa! Uh-oh!
Rocky's crane arm kept swinging about, but James wouldn't stop.
Whoa! That was close!
Then, as they approached the flooded track, James saw a signal that warned him to slow down.
What was that?
What was what?
I knocked something over!
I'm sure it couldn't have been anything important.
But a signal is very important indeed.
Hurry up! It's cold and wet in here.
Keep your steam in, Duck. We're coming to rescue you.
I don't have any steam, James. The water has put out my firebox.
James had to position Rocky in front of him for the rescue.
There you go. Help has arrived.
And that's me!
I'll be glad to have my wheels on dry track again, I can tell you.
Honestly, I thought ducks liked being in the water.
James thought this was very funny, even though he knew Duck wasn't really a duck.
Duck isn't even my real name. My real name is Montague.
Meanwhile, Oliver was coming along Duck's branch line too, but he didn't see any signal warning him to stop or slow down. Luckily, nobody was hurt, but James was very cross.
Oliver, why didn't you look where you were going? There was a yellow signal back there.
I didn't see any signal.
Please? Can I get out the water now?
Rocky started to lift Duck back out of the water again, and Oliver started to back up so that his driver could put up a warning flag. But then there was more trouble. By this time, Harold had seen what was going on, and he flew back to fetch the Fat Controller. At last, Rocky managed to lift Duck out of the water.
Thank you, Rocky.
You're welcome, Duck.
So many accidents. How could this have happened on my railway?
I'm very sorry, sir, but it must be my fault. I must have knocked down the signal pole. My crane arm wasn't secured, and I was swinging about.
It was nobody's fault. It was an accident. I was in a hurry to go, and Rocky wasn't ready, so... Oh, actually, sir, I suppose it was my fault. I didn't give Rocky time to secure his crane arm properly. That's why he was swinging about.
I can't say that I am very happy about this, James, but I am proud of you for admitting what you have done. Perhaps it would be best if you made amends by pulling Duck's trucks while his firebox dries out.
Yes, sir, I'd be happy to.
Pulling trucks may not be his favorite job, and James knows that he can't always do the jobs he likes best. But so long as the sun is shining, he is a very splendid-looking, bright red engine indeed.